Night. That means it's time for the Panther-Lair Show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You're watching this show. You're tuning in. As we do every Wednesday night, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I won't pump those things too many times, but we got to do it a few times. I always watch these videos, or I don't watch them, but my kids always watch these videos on YouTube of people playing like Minecraft and things like this. And I hear it constantly in the background. I'm absorbing these things through osmosis. And they always tell people to smash the like button and smash the subscribe button. So do that here. I'm not playing Minecraft. It's not that cool to watch. Your kids don't care about this stuff, but you do. And so hit the like button, hit the subscribe button there, and make sure you turn on notifications too. That way you always get an alert whenever we go live, like on a Wednesday night. For the live show, you can get an alert on your phone that says, hey, Panther-Lair is about to start talking. And then also after the game, like on Wednesday or Saturday, I'm not sure what time exactly we're going to start after the Western Michigan game. Could be 5 minutes after the game, could be a half hour. Depends on when we get this thing all fired up and ready to go. But if you subscribe, you hit that subscribe button and you turn on the notifications, you'll get alerts to your phone. It says, hey, Panther-Lair.com on YouTube is going live right now. And then you'll know that it's time to tune in. You also get alerts every morning, Monday through Friday, when we post a new Morning Pitt video. We've been doing it for about 3 weeks now. The response has been great. It's been a lot of fun to do it. Sit down every morning and just talk about some Pitt stuff, whatever it is that's going on. What was it yesterday? No, today, Wednesday, I talked about three key players. The key three. The three guys Pitt has to get the ball to. And that's going to be a topic for tonight as well, and kind of what this offense needs to do going forward. I also talked about Taekwon Underwood and his recruiting efforts and how he has done and the impact he has made, the effect he has had on Pitt's recruiting so far, not just the class of 2023, the guys who are seniors, but a couple classes below that too, 24 and 25. We can get into that discussion if we like. And he's obviously got Pitt in the mix for Hakeem Williams, a five-star wide receiver in the class of 2023. So we can talk about all of those things. Talked also on the Morning Pitt, we talked about the Pitt basketball schedule coming out. 2022-23 schedule is out. We discussed that on the Morning Pitt, and that's what we do. I mean, every day there's some kind of Pitt topics to discuss, and sometimes it'll be recruiting stuff. We actually have a recruiting episode coming up very soon. Sometimes it'll be team stuff. It'll be interviews. We'll have guests. There's just different. We always have something Pitt to talk about Monday through Friday on the Morning Pitt. So make sure you subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and get involved in that conversation, and or just get a morning dose of Pitt stuff. Pitt talking is what it is. And of course the website, I mean, we got to shout it out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, last but certainly not least, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Pitt football, Pitt basketball, Pitt recruiting, you find it all at Panther-Lair.com. And of course message boards, where we have these conversations on Wednesday night. You post in the chat screen, we go back and forth. That's what it's like on Panther-Lair.com all day, every day. The message boards, Panther-Lair.com. It's just an ongoing 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week conversation about Pitt sports, Panther-Lair.com. So if you are a Pitt fan, I don't think you're going to find a better source, a better online community than at Panther-Lair.com. So a lot of things I'm asking you to do. Check out Panther-Lair.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video. We appreciate all those things, and keep watching, because that is, the thing we appreciate the most is the viewers and everybody who tunes in on a daily basis. And we're coming up on an interesting game. I mean, I don't think there's any question about it. This game on Saturday night, from a Pitt perspective, it really, you can run the gamut of, really from one extreme to another in terms of how you probably feel about this game. And if you tell me you are terrified about this game, I'd say, yeah, I get that. If you tell me you're really confident about this game, I'd say, yeah, I get that. If you tell me that you don't have any idea what to expect, given the setting and the circumstances and all kinds of different elements in this situation, I'd say, yeah, I get that too. Because look, you go on the road to face a MAC team at night, you're walking into a hornet's nest. I mean, more often than not, Akron in 2015 was not a hornet's nest. Now, it was also pouring down rain. It was miserable conditions. And quite frankly, Akron is, pretty depressing when it comes to football programs. At least it certainly was in 2015. No offense to Joe Moorhead, but it certainly was in 2015. But we've seen plenty of examples of going on the road to MAC teams, and particularly in primetime games, you walk into a really dangerous situation. And probably the most notable example is the 2005 Ohio game. That was the first road game I covered, the first Pitt road game that I ever covered for Panther-Lair.com. And so the season opens, and they open against Notre Dame. They get destroyed. And then they go to Ohio in week 2. And I go out there, and I'm young. 2005. I don't know even how old I was. What's the matter? I was like 26 years old. You know what I mean? I'm young. I was Ohio. Who cares about Ohio? They're gonna blow out Ohio, and I'll have a fun night on the road. This is exciting. First time I'm going on the road, man. This is awesome. Well, I learned that night what thunder sticks were. I knew what thunder sticks were, but I didn't know they were called thunder sticks, and I learned the impact that thunder sticks could have. Matt Cavanaugh learned about the hash marks in college football, and I learned that just because you think one team is going to be better because they play at a higher level or in a bigger division or a bigger conference or something, anything can happen. And anything can happen, particularly if you have a coaching staff and a roster that aren't really prepared for the moment. And it happened. They lost in overtime, I think, right? It was a pick six. It was a pass that was picked off and taken back. I feel like Ohio scored. I don't think they scored an offensive touchdown. I think it was like a pick six and a kickoff return for a touchdown, or maybe 2 pick sixes off of Tyler Palko. But I learned that night that in those kind of situations, it's dangerous. It's dangerous because it's a Super Bowl feel for some of those teams. Like the Western Michigan crowd is probably not going to get all that amped up when Kent State comes to town or Akron comes to town or Toledo or whoever it is. But here they've got a Power 5 conference team coming to town. And it's a team that they beat last year. They're going to be fired up. They're going to be ready to go. And I don't know if they're going to have thunder sticks, but I wouldn't be surprised. Incidentally, the athletic director at Western Michigan now is a guy named Dan Bartholomew, who was a Pitt administrator for a long time. He's a younger guy, but he was at Pitt for a long time. Graduated somewhere around 2000, I think, and it was in Pitt administration ever since then. I believe he was in academics for a while and compliance, and he ultimately went with Scott Barnes to Oregon State, and then was hired as the Western Michigan athletic director at some point in the last year. So he's got memories of Ohio 2005. He's got memories of the thunder sticks, and so if they bust out the thunder sticks for this game on Saturday night, credit a Pitt man for putting it into action. But it's a dangerous situation. It's a dangerous situation to walk into when you're at full strength and you're ready to go and you have everybody available. It becomes more dangerous when you have injury questions and personnel uncertainty and you're not really sure who's going to be ready to play. And that's the case for Pitt right now. Question marks about Keaton Slovis. Question marks about let's be honest. That's the question mark. Like, are we going to sit here and talk about what are they going to do if Devin Danielson's not ready to play? Danielson left the Tennessee game with an injury. You thought at first that it might be one of those injuries that just conveniently and coincidentally slow down an up-tempo offense. But it happened on like the first play of a drive, and Danielson didn't return. So I think it was it was a real legitimate injury. But I don't think we're going to spend too much time talking about how Pitt replaces Devin Danielson if he can't play this week. I don't know if we're going to spend too much time talking about the defensive tackle depth and how deep they can go and are they in trouble. They've still got Kalijah Cansey and Tyler Bentley and David Green and DeAndre Jules has been playing. We're probably not going to spend a lot of time on that. The big injury, the one we're all watching, is Keaton Slovis. The question mark is Keaton Slovis. And I think for most Pitt fans, the confidence level is going to be determined by whether or not that guy right there on the screen, Keaton Slovis, plays this week. It's going to depend on whether or not he makes that trip. if he's ready to play, if he's cleared to play, and if he's on the field. And if he's on the field, you feel good about their chances. Feel great about their chances. If he's not, you feel a little less good. And you feel a little less good because not only would that mean Keaton Slovis is out, but it's highly unlikely that that guy on the screen, Nick Patty, is going to play too. I would not expect him to be playing. I probably wouldn't expect him to make the trip. Which means if Keaton Slovis is unavailable, you're now talking about Dartmouth transfer Derek Kyler or redshirt freshman Nate Yarnell. Kyler, as I said, transferred in from Dartmouth this offseason. Yarnell hasn't played a real football game in like 2 years. Maybe 3. Neither is an ideal situation. I mean, like, when they went with Davis Bevel in the Peach Bowl, when they had to go with Davis Bevel after Nick Patty got hurt in the Peach Bowl, he still came into that game with more actual on-field snaps and reps than Nate Yarnell has. Nate Yarnell has never played in a college game. And so that's precarious. Derek Kyler, pretty efficient at Dartmouth, set efficiency records and led Dartmouth to a pretty good season and, protected the football, which is ultimately what you're looking for out of a guy. You know what I mean? If you have to turn to your number 3 quarterback in a situation, you want him at the bare minimum thing you want from him and need from him is protecting the ball. Don't turn it over. Now, at some point, you're going to have to rely on the quarterback to make a play. At some point, you're going to have to rely on the quarterback to make the right read, to make the right check, the right call, to show some sort of savvy on the field, and then drop back and make a play. And I don't know how confident you're going to feel about Derek Kyler or Nate Yarnell walking into this situation on the road against a tuned-up Western Michigan crowd that's been amped up for the game all day, remembering how they beat Pitt last year. I don't know how great you're going to feel about walking into that situation with Derek Kyler or Nate Yarnell as the starting quarterback. And that's no disrespect to either of those guys. That's not a knock on their abilities. It's more to say this is a very dangerous spot if you have to go in with those guys. Now, I will say, if Keaton Slovis is available, or if they have to go with Kyler or Yarnell, ultimately, the game plan is going to be the same, or it should be the same. Feed Izzy Abanikanda. 26 touches, 175 yards, and a touchdown last week. That's the kind of game he needs to have. That's the kind of workload he needs to have, and you've got to go to him. I talked about that on the Morning Pit this morning. I said there are 3 guys. There are 3 guys who need to get the ball. You need to feed 3 guys on offense right now, and this could change over the course of the season, but there are 3 guys who need to be the focal points in the offense, and it's Gavin Bartholomew at tight end. We can talk about him in a second. It's Jared Wayne at wide receiver. We'll talk about him in a second. And maybe most importantly, it's Israel Abanikanda. He is a key, and he pops up on the screen perfectly at the perfect time. I thought he looked really good against Tennessee. And I think there were more opportunities for him to even pick up more yards. One of the most interesting comments and topics to come out this week, and I don't know if anybody else picked up on it. I think I talked about it on Morning Pit, maybe on Tuesday. I asked Andre Powell about it on Tuesday, the Pitt running backs coach. One of the most interesting sort of threads that I've picked up this week. On Monday, Pat Narduzzi he was talking about blocking schemes. And he said sometimes it's not always the blocking, it's not always the offensive line. And he talked about RPOs. And he said, there were RPOs, there were plays out there, these run-pass option plays where the quarterback takes a snap and he's making a read. And the read either, whatever player he's reading tells him to either give the ball to the running back or pull it and run or throw himself. And Pat Narduzzi said there were plays where ball snapped, he's making the read, and the read says you give the ball to the running back. That's what the read was. On reviewing the film, they said, okay, Keaton Slovis or Nick Patty should have seen, okay, you're reading that guy. What he's doing tells you to give the ball to the running back. And in some instances, the quarterback pulled it, even though he should have given it to the running back. And it became even more frustrating for the coaching staff because they looked at those plays, and some of those plays where the quarterback pulled the ball instead of giving it as the read would dictate, some of those plays were blocked pretty well. That if he had given the ball, there were opportunities for big runs. Okay? Like the touchdown run that Izzy Abanikanda had, the 76-yard run, which was an RPO play and was blocked perfectly. So those opportunities were there. Where that big game that he had, that 154 yard rushing performance, in addition to a 21 yard pass reception, but the 150 rushing yards on the 25 carries could have been even more if a few of those RPOs had been gives as the read dictated. And so I asked Andre Powell about it the next day because I thought, well, that's really interesting that Pat Narduzzi would say this, talking about RPOs. Because I didn't remember it really being part of the offense last year or, during the Mark Whipple years. So I asked Andre Powell on Tuesday. I said, Pat made reference to RPOs. Was that, do you have more of those in the offense this year than you did last year? How does it take a while to get that timing down and everything? He said, yeah, we have more of them. We didn't have any last year, so we might have had one. Mark Whipple didn't believe in RPOs. Frank Cignetti has put those into the Pitt offense, and I think that could be crucial this week as they work to establish the run, as they try to get something going on the ground for a lot of reasons. One, that's how they want to run the offense. Two, whether your quarterback is Keaton Slovis and he's still coming back from the injury he suffered in the Tennessee game, or it's Derek Kyler or Nate Yarnell and you're trying to protect those guys and you're trying to not put them in a position where they're going to put the ball in jeopardy. Either way, you're going to be running the ball, and this might be the best way to do it. Now, the tricky part is, let's set Keaton Slovis aside for a second. If he doesn't play, how comfortable are Kyler and Yarnell? How ready are Kyler and Yarnell to make those reads and make those plays? Those are quick decisions, and it takes time to get really good at running them. I mean, it's not something... This is what I said after the Western Michigan game last year. People said, why isn't everybody just going to do that? Why isn't everybody just going to run those RPOs and just pick Pitt apart all season long? I said, well, it's not necessarily the kind of thing that you can just put in a week. That if you're an offense that doesn't really have those in, it's hard to look at the film from earlier in the season and say, wow, Western Michigan killed them with these plays. Let's run some of those. It takes time to get comfortable with the reads. It takes time to get comfortable with the timing for the quarterback and the running back. It's not necessarily something you can just pick up like that. And so that's a tricky part of this for Kyler and Yarnell, who I'm sure practice these things in training camp. But are they going to be up to speed? Are they going to be able to run them at game speed and make those decisions at game speed and make those reads at game speed and be able to really execute it effectively to take advantage of the defense? That if the defense is giving them those things, if the defense shows the read that leads the quarterback to give, are they going to make that read properly? And if the defense sells out to stop the run, are they going to make the right read to pull the ball and make a quick throw? That's a lot to ask guys who have been working as, at best, the number 3 quarterback basically for the last month and a half, really back into spring ball. And Derek Kyler wasn't even here in spring ball. And Nate Yarnell wasn't a full participant in spring ball. You're talking about two guys who basically their full practices have been limited to the past month and a half. And if you have to go with them, it doesn't make a win impossible or anything like that. I don't think it makes Western Michigan the favorite. But it's going to make things a lot more challenging. It's going to make it incumbent upon Pitt's defense to control the game. It's going to make it incumbent upon Pitt's defense to not let Western Michigan go off. It's going to make it incumbent upon Pitt's defense to play really well. Now, this is not your... I can't say your dad's Western Michigan team. It's not your uncle's Western Michigan team. It's not your older brother's. But this is not your Western Michigan team from a year ago. This is the 2022 Western Michigan team. And Caleb Ellaby and Sky Moore were really good players. Had huge games against Pitt. They weren't the only guys. Corey Crooms had a big game against Pitt, and he's back. But I think taking the quarterback out of the equation and replacing him, Caleb Ellaby, with Jack Salopik from Norwin grad, who was a brief target, a minor target for, I think it was Sean Watson. Mark Whipple might have picked it up for a little bit, but they never really got too far down the road with him. He's not Caleb Ellaby. He might be better. He hasn't been thus far. We'll see what he's able to do. But he's not, I don't think he's going to be able to run those things as effectively, as smoothly as Caleb Ellaby did. And yes, they have Corey Crooms back, but when you have Sky Moore and Corey Crooms, it makes you more dangerous than just having Corey Crooms. I think it's really going to come down to Izzy Abanikanda. Andre Powell talked about having, wanting to get Vincent Davis more involved, Sibo Flemister more involved. I mean, that's all well and good. Get those guys some reps here and there. Give Abanikanda a break every now and then. But, your workhorse is your workhorse, and your lead back is your lead back. And if Rodney Hammond was available for this game, I'd be like, yeah, go ahead. You split it up one quarter at a time. Get out of the first half and see who's the hot hand. Go every 2 drives or something like that. Whatever you want to do. However you want to break it up, knock yourself out. Put 2 and 6 out there in a variety of combinations and different series and all that kind of. That's fine. But that's because 2 and 6 are up here, and 22 and 24 are here. It's not to say they don't have a value. It's not to say they don't have a use. It's not to say that they can't be useful in a win. They can. But 2 is the guy who's going to make the plays for you. 2 is the guy who's going to carry the load. 2 is the guy who should get 20-plus carries in this game. And keep getting 20-plus carries until Rodney Hammond comes back. At some point, you got to be a workhorse. And they haven't had a workhorse back since 2018 when they had 2 of them. I mean, they really didn't have a workhorse back any of the 3 Mark Whipple years, and part of that was due to the play calling and the design of the offense, but part of that was due to just they didn't have anybody who was ready for it. You know what I mean? They didn't have anybody who was legitimately, I think, capable of being a workhorse back. They didn't have that player. And so, this year, I think they've got that guy. This year, they have 2. I think they have 2 guys who are capable of doing it. And right now, they only have one of them available, but they have an offense that's going to use them. They have an offense that's going to use that running back as a workhorse, and that's what they need to do. They need to lean on that. And I think they need to lean on that even if Keaton Slovis plays. I think Keaton Slovis coming back from an injury. And right now, I'm and I've said this on the message board a couple of times, I'm leaning toward Slovis playing from everything we're hearing. I'm not 100% convinced that he's going to because I don't think it's 100% a done deal yet. Like I say, I think there's a good chance that he does play, but I don't think he's out of the woods yet as far as being ready to play. Just quite yet. Even if he does play, because he's coming back from an injury, because it's a week since he got hurt and had to leave a game halfway through, you can't lean on him the way you would probably like to if he was 100% or closer to 100% than he is right now. You would like to go into this game. I think probably their best chance would be Keaton Slovis was healthy and they could go into this game and have a game plan like the one against Tennessee where they come out and they're in the shotgun. They're throwing early and often. They're mixing in the run. It's not pass first, but it's pretty pass heavy. And still an ample amount of the run game mixed in. Taking shots on both sides, pass and run until you see which one they're going to sell out to stop, and then you hit them with the other. I think this offense has that kind of versatility, and that I think they're capable of being sort of a dual threat offense that really can run or pass on you once they figure out which one you want, or once you decide which one you want to try really hard to stop. But I don't think they have that luxury this week. I don't think they can rely on Keaton Slovis in this game. If he's available and he plays, he's going to have to make some big throws for you at some point. But I think the game plan stays the same. Safe throws, which is where the tight end Gavin Bartholomew comes in. And then a heavy reliance on the running game and trying to establish Izzy Abanikanda and doing different things. If you can't line up and run power, if you can't line up and run, off tackle or whatever it is, use counters, use toss plays, and use the RPOs. You do different things. All right, you don't have to just run a power running game, but find ways to get the ball in his hands and have him make plays for you. I think 5 and 86, Jared Wayne and Gavin Bartholomew are a big part of that equation as well. Not necessarily as guys that you're gonna drop back, 7-step drop and try, heave it, air it out to them. I mean, you could try that every now and then, but in this case, I think the priority is keeping Keaton Slovis healthy and upright. And so you're going to look at quicker throws, shorter throws, safer throws. Gavin Bartholomew in the flat, Jared Wayne over the middle and running outs and things like that, where you're not going too far, you're not stretching too far, and you're not putting the ball in danger. You need to protect the football. And you need to give your quarterback a chance to protect the football and not put him in danger. Some of that comes down to the blocking. There's no question. And, part of that's going to be about, improving the reads and setting the protection correctly and all those things. But ultimately, I think you're going to have to run. You're going to have to run and then hit Wayne and Bartholomew with safe passes to try and move the chains. I noticed that I was just looking at different betting trends. The over-under has come down on this game. It's dropped by like a touchdown or more, depending on where you look. Pitt is still favored. I think the last time I saw they're favored by like 10. But that over-under coming down, I think because people were expecting, I would assume people were expecting this game to be a little bit lower scoring, probably as Pitt tries to control the tempo and control the time of possession and like I said, play ball control and keep things, keep clock running and try to make this game as short as possible. You know what I mean? Really try and shorten it up. All right, a lot of people in the chat already. Super chatters coming in and very much appreciate that. Want to get into your comments and questions. I always say, a big part of the fun on these live shows is that chat screen where we can really kind of have a back and forth. It's like a talk show. If the Morning Pit is sort of a morning news show, this Wednesday Night Live show and even the post-game show, it's more of a talk show where we can go back and forth. You're not calling in, but like you would on the radio, but you type your comments and your questions, and I can I respond to your comments and answer your questions as much as we can. If you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets asked, you can be a super chatter. Click the little $sign down there at the bottom. Toss a couple bucks to the podcast. We appreciate that support very much, and we will definitely get to your comment or your question. Before we get into the comments and questions, I want to give a shout out to our friend Chris Gates. I talked about him last week, and you might know, if you're on Twitter, you probably know him. He's Chris_Gates on Twitter. Great Twitter personality, great Twitter Pitt fan, great things to say about Pitt. He's funny, he's smart, but he also runs a really, it's a business, but he helps people, and he helps people achieve their goals in health and fitness using nutrition. Chris, so if you don't know Chris, he's an online fitness coach. He's from Pittsburgh, and he works with people all over the world online to help build muscle and burn fat and just generally help improve health through fitness and nutrition. If you want to get buff, you can get buff, but it's not just about getting buff. It's about being healthy. Chris, what he does, he guides and supports his clients really every step of the way. So you can just show up, you put in the work, and you have confidence that what you're doing is working. He has testimonials all over his website, chrisgatesfitness.com, of people who have done exactly that. They put in the work and they see the results because the work is good. The work accomplishes the goals. Chris, of course, is a huge Pitt fan, which is why he's backing us here on the podcast and was like, hey, I want to reach your audience. I said, yeah, we can absolutely do that. He's a huge Pitt fan. He's a big fan of the podcast. And every football season, he gets feedback about how hard it is to stay consistent with working out and eating right when you got a game and a tailgate every weekend. Because look, you've been to tailgates. What's the food look like there? It's not all kale chips and bottled water, right? Well, what Chris has done, he can help you, or what he can do is he can help you navigate through the fall football season. Go to chrisgatesfitness.com and you can learn more about his online fitness coaching, and he's got tailgating cookbooks to help you have fun and enjoy and live life while also keeping an eye on health and nutrition. And if you mention Panther-Lair, when you go apply, when you go to his website, you can get 75% off your first month of coaching. chrisgatesfitness.com. Go check that out. chrisgatesfitness.com. Chris is a big Pitt fan. We're a big fan of his, and he does some great stuff. He helps people out. I'm a big fan, so go check it out. chrisgatesfitness.com. In the chat here, we'll start with the super chatters, see what everybody's saying right now. RJCman38 is one of our regular super chatters. We appreciate you. He's a good super chatter. Let's see if he's got anything to say. Can't find any comments, but I'm sure I'll get it to you at some point in here. Here's one from RJCman38. He says, Keaton Slovis is likely out. It looked like a clavicle or a shoulder injury. That might be what it looked like, but that wasn't it. That's not it. That's not what he was hurt with. You might have thought that's what it looked like, but that wasn't it. Let's see what other super chatters. Yinan? I probably apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Yinan says, thanks, Chris. Hey, thank you. I appreciate you being a super chatter. Joe News says, get ready for the Wildcat on multiple plays. Hey, you got to get the ball into Izzy Abanikanda's hand. All right? You got to get the ball to Abanikanda as much as you can and in any ways you can. And if that's handing it off to him, if it's throwing to him, if it's running RPOs with him, if it's running counters or tosses, whatever you want to do, and if it's direct snapping to him, all right. If you can get that in and you can get enough plays and get ready to do it in a week, then go for it. In 2007, Pitt went up to Michigan State. 2007, Billy Stahl got hurt in the first game, and Pat Bostic comes in. I think it was the third game of the season when they went up to Michigan State. At that point, I think Kevin Smith was still the starting quarterback. I think he started against Grambling in the second week, and the third week they went to Michigan State. I think Pat Narduzzi was the defensive coordinator, actually, at Michigan State that year. And they come out, and I think they opened the second half with LeSean McCoy and the Wildcat. And Michigan State was totally caught off guard. They really couldn't stop it. Penn ended up losing the game because the quarterback play was that bad, but they really couldn't stop it. LeSean McCoy was dynamite in the Wildcat. The offensive line blocked it well. They really executed. And it was a weapon they used throughout the rest of the season. They lost some of the element of surprise after that game, but it was a weapon they used throughout the rest of the season. But they didn't just put it in prior to the Michigan State game. They practiced that throughout training camp because they thought their quarterback situation might merit, being a little more creative and doing some different things. And with LeSean McCoy clearly being the best player on the team or the best offensive weapon, they planned for that. And they planned throughout training camp. They didn't use it against Eastern Michigan. They didn't use it against Grambling. They saved it, and they used it in their first big game when they went to Michigan State. So unless Pitt has been practicing the Wildcat all summer long, and I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen all of their practices, so maybe they have. I don't know about it. It would be tough to put that stuff in and execute it and run it well in, out of the blue in the course of a week. But we'll see. We'll see what they can come up with. TRR started off the chat with saying, my bold prediction this summer was Ryan Jacoby beating out Marcus Minor. Now it's time to make that switch along with Branson Taylor and Blake Zabovic on the right side. Changes need to be made up front. It's interesting. Marcus Minor is the only offensive lineman who's played every snap so far this season. He is. Carter Warren came out for a series or two. Branson Taylor replaced him. Taylor also took snaps in place of Matt Gonsalves for a while. Jake Cradle even had a little bit of time off. He's played fullback. He's lined up as fullback a few times, and Blake Zabovic's gone in at right guard. And I think Cradle actually had a series or two off. Marcus Minor has played the most snaps on offense of any player this season for Pitt. Jared Wayne has played the second most snaps of any player on offense this season, which I thought was an interesting stat. Changes on the offensive line, we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. I do think if they can get Gabe Hoy back healthy, that's going to help that right side of the line considerably. Now, the thing to watch is Owen Drexel got hurt in that Tennessee game. He came out late in the fourth quarter, and we don't know what his status is. If he can't go, they'll probably, my guess, is Jake Cradle will slide from right guard into center, and then Blake Zabovic would step in as the starting right guard. So maybe you'll get a little bit of what you're talking about there. Although, Terrence Moore is the backup center. He's the guy who came in and replaced Owen Drexel when Drexel got hurt. Are they ready to go with the redshirt freshman or, who has been practicing exclusively at center? Or are they going to go with the redshirt senior and Jake Cradle, who hasn't practiced as much at center, but has played there in the past and certainly has, is more experience and, is older and, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be another one to watch. Actually, I talked about Keith Silvis being the only notable injury to watch. The Drexel injury is another one to keep an eye on and see who plays center for Pitt on Saturday at Western Michigan and how that impacts things. Josh Newark says, great morning Pitt videos, really enjoying them. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you checking it out. It's been a lot of fun to do the morning Pitt videos. I've been enjoying it more than I thought I would, to be honest. Just sitting down and talking about Pitt every morning. And like I said, we're getting a great response, great feedback. Really appreciate everybody who's been checking it out. Adam Vinchik says, do you think if Slovis plays that they will be a vanilla offense, or do you expect an open playbook? Look, so that's a little bit of what I was talking about earlier. It's going to depend on how comfortable he is. I think that's what it's going to come down to. My guess is it'll be a little bit limited. My guess is they'll try even harder to establish the run, try even harder than they have in the past, and they've been trying pretty hard so far this season. But I think they'll dedicate even more to the run, and try to get it going that way. And if Western Michigan is just selling out to stop the run, they're putting 8-9 guys in the box, then you're going to have to throw. And that's when Jared Wayne has to be in the exact right spot every time and make the catches. And Gavin Bartholomew has to be in the exact right spot every time and make the catches. They're going to have to lean on those guys. And at some point, even if they're able to establish the run, they're still going to have to make plays through the air every now and then. And so, whoever plays, whatever quarterback plays is going to have to make a couple throws. No matter how much they do to protect Keaton Slovis or Derek Kyler or Nate Yarnell, at some point the quarterback is going to have to do something to win the game, or they'll do something to lose it. And so you can go vanilla as much as you want. You can limit the playbook as much as you want. You can do as much as you want to protect those guys. But at some point, they're going to have to throw. Josh Newark says, recruiting question. You mentioned this morning that 3 big-time wide receiver recruits took unofficial visits last week. Pitt can't pay for their unofficial visits, but I assume NIL collectives and boosters can. What is the rule there or lack thereof? So that's interesting, Josh. I really hadn't thought about that, but I don't think there's a lot of that going on. I think if you were to have an NIL group that somehow pays for a recruit to travel to an unofficial visit, I'm pretty sure that somebody would get in trouble for that. I really don't think you could pull that off. I mean, anything's possible, and I'm sure it does happen. It has happened, but people have gotten in trouble for that kind of thing, paying for an unofficial visit. I don't think that's the case here, and I think for the most part, I don't think that's happening, where these NIL groups are paying for a visit. Maybe I'm naive. Excuse me. Maybe I'm, just like I say, naive. Maybe I'm just, believing everything is, everything is above board. I know it's not. I know everything is not above board, but I don't think that particular scenario what you're describing is happening. If you're not sure what Josh is talking about, Pitt had 3 big-time wide receivers on campus this past weekend. All there for the Pitt-Tennessee game at Acrisure Stadium. And there was a recruit from the 2025 class, Marcus Harris, who's a 4-star wide receiver, a top 10 receiver in the 2025 recruiting class. That's the kids who are sophomores right now, going through their sophomore year of high school. And he flew in from California to watch Pitt play. There was Ryan Wingo, who's a 5-star wide receiver, and I think the number 2 receiver in the class of 2024. So he's a junior right now in high school. He flew in from St. Louis for the game on an unofficial visit, which means he pays for his travel and his room and board and everything. And then there was Hakeem Williams, 5-star wide receiver, I think number 4 receiver in the class. He flew in from Florida to attend the game. So 3 of really the top receivers in their respective classes all decided to pay money for a plane ticket and a hotel and all those things to travel to watch Pitt play. And you know who we give all that credit to? I talked about it on the Morning Pit this morning. It's Taekwon Underwood. I mean, Underwood is the key with these guys. Now, Underwood is who got Hakeem Williams interested in Pitt initially. Now, Charlie Partridge has picked up the work there, and Pat Narduzzi has been working hard there. And that's an all-hands-on-deck recruitment with a 5-star wide receiver. But Taekwon Underwood is the one who got it started. Same thing with Ryan Wingo. He's the reason that Wingo came to Pitt for an unofficial visit. Same thing with Marcus Harris. He's the reason that Marcus Harris came to Pitt for an unofficial visit. And if we were wondering about the change from Brennan Marion to Taekwon Underwood, if we were wondering about a drop-off in coaching or recruiting, I mean, set aside what you think about how Konate Mumfield and Bub Means have played so far this season. On the recruiting side, it's hard to argue with what Underwood has done. It's hard to argue with the results he's gotten just to get those guys interested enough to visit. 5-star wide receivers don't typically take 2 unofficial visits and an official visit to Pitt over the course of roughly 5 months. And it doesn't happen. 5-star wide receivers don't come up for a game like this to Pitt. I mean, just historically, you don't see that happening. But Tyquan Underwood, it's a major credit to him, has made it happen for Pitt a bunch of times already. And he's the reason Hakeem Williams is seriously looking at Pitt, in addition to Florida State and Texas A&M. Actually, so it's the 23rd. He's announcing his commitment the 23rd. What is that? Today's the 14th, 15th, 16th. So next Friday night, Hakeem Williams is or next Friday at some point. I shouldn't say night. I don't know if it's the night, but next Friday, Hakeem Williams is going to announce his commitment. We'll see what he ends up deciding. Let's scroll through here. Christian Kosmak says, I see a lot of, the dream is over, etc. Everything is still in front of us. Clean it up, win 10 in the ACC, and we're a playoff team, no question. Ranked SEC loss in overtime is the best loss scenario. So, I hear you, Christian. I'll be honest, there's a lot that I like about this team. I don't like the fact that Keaton Slovis missed the second half of the Tennessee game and could potentially be either limited or miss more time. But for all that we talk about this offense and what they can or can't do and what the offensive line is doing or not doing, Keaton Slovis played 6 quarters against Power 5 non-conference competition and threw for 500-plus yards. 503, 508, whatever it ended up being, 503 yards in 6 quarters. I mean, you can figure out the pace there of what he was on track for. We talk about the Tennessee game, and it looks like a pedestrian stat line. He threw for 195 yards. That was in one half. That was one half of football on top of the 308 that he threw for against West Virginia. Izzy Abanikanda just had 175 yards of total offense against Tennessee, against an SEC opponent. Jared Wayne looks really good. Gavin Bartholomew, you saw what he did on Saturday. He looks really good. And these other receivers, like Konate Mumfield and Bub Means, I don't believe it was all just blowing smoke, all the positive things we heard, particularly about Mumfield over the course of the offseason. And he has made some big catches. He has made some big plays for Pitt this season. Now, he's had some rough ones. He's had more targets than anybody else on the team, but he's only second on the team in receptions. He had a bad drop against Tennessee. He needs to get better. He needs to get more consistent. He needs to get more comfortable playing at this level. All right? You're not at Akron anymore. This is Power 5 football, and you just played 2 Power 5 opponents. And this is what it's going to be like. This is what it's going to be like when you get into the ACC games. But I still believe in his ability and his talent. I think he can be really, really good, and I think he's going to show that as the season goes on. I won't be surprised when the game comes. Not if the game comes, but when the game comes. I won't be surprised when the game comes that he has a breakout. I mean, it might be this week, although there's going to be a lot of complicating factors involved. But I mean, in ACC games, I think he's going to play well. And I think Bub Means is going to have a couple of games. Maybe he won't be the most consistent receiver on the team, but I think he'll have games where he looks pretty awesome. And I think Jalen Barden and Jaden Bradley have a lot to give too. And that's just the offense. That's not even getting into the defense. Because that second half performance against Tennessee, I mean, that was really good. That was some of the best defense we've seen out of a Pat Narduzzi team. Giving up a field goal to that offense with the way they were rolling as the first half ended. Hendon Hooker missed some throws, but Pitt had something to do with some of those. There were a few throws that Hooker could have hit. There were a few sacks that Pitt could have had too. So we can kind of balance things out a little bit there as far as the buts. I mean, the defense played really well. They're going to have their moments. They're going to have their moments where they give up those plays. I mean, this is I'm on repeat here saying this. They're going to have those moments where they give up those long passes. And to be quite honest, the first 2 games, they've faced 2 really good wide receivers, and Bryce Ford-Wheaton in West Virginia and Cedric Tillman at Tennessee. Those guys look like NFL players, and they had and really good wide receivers are going to make play. Really good wide receivers with good enough quarterbacks are going to make plays against this defense. The way the defense rebounded, the way the defense came around and played in the second half, I mean, it was as good as it could be. Better than I ever thought it was going to be. Better than I ever thought it was going to be. I thought this game was going to be in the 40s. I'm shocked that they only gave up a field goal in the second half. And so you've got an offense where the quarterback is, whatever 500 yards over 6 quarters projects out to, and it seems to be getting better. I mean, I think you would say from the West Virginia, not even just from game to game, but the first half of the West Virginia game to the second half of the West Virginia game to the first half of the Tennessee game, he got better, better, better. I mean, he got better and better. You've got a quarterback who's improving. You've got a running back who just went off. You've got a wide receiver and a tight end who look like they will step up for you whenever you need them to. You've got 2 other wide receivers with immense physical talents who can break out. And you've got a defense that's playing at a really, really high level and showed some signs of life and really kind of blew up. There's a lot to like about this team. And there's a lot to like about this schedule going forward, too. I know everything I said about this Western Michigan game, and it is. It's a hornet's nest. It's dangerous. This is a dangerous game. But if you win that, then you get Rhode Island. You get Georgia Tech. And you start getting onto a little bit of roll. And you start saying, who really scares you on this schedule? Miami at the end. Syracuse has won a couple games. Duke's won a couple games. You're scared by those teams. Carolina's scoring a lot, but by golly, they cannot stop anyone. Virginia, not looking so hot. Nobody really in the Coastal. Louisville, I think, you lose to Syracuse and you really question your existence, So you kind of run down the list and you say, who's scary on this schedule? So you've got all these sort of things going well for Pitt as far as their personnel and their roster and how they're playing, despite the fact that they're coming off of a loss. And then you look at the remaining 10 games and you say, it's not a terrible schedule. It's not an unwinnable schedule. It's not a daunting schedule. It's very much winnable. And I mean, I'm absolutely with you, Christian, that I think there's a lot to like here. There's a lot to like about Pitt's chances of making this a very interesting and exciting season. All right, G Money says Dave Borbley was demoted at Maryland and Pat Narduzzi got him off the scrap heap. Yeah, sure. It's stop me if you've heard this one before. A coach got fired and then he got hired at a new job. Dave Borbley was the offensive line coach for this team when they set a record for for rushing, and a school record for rushing in a single season. Dave Borbley was the offensive line coach for a team that had 2 1,000-yard rushers for the first time in Pitt history. Dave Borbley's not a bad offensive line coach. If he comes, if he goes, whatever it is, I think there's enough talent in this line. I think Dave Borbley knows what he's doing enough that they should be able to figure things out and continue to play at a higher level. Pat Narduzzi said he felt like the offensive line played better in week 2 than they did in week 1. That improvement should continue. Anthony Tennyson says, like you said in your morning talk, Jalen Barden needs to be more involved starting Saturday. I think so. I'm a big I'm a big Jalen Barden guy. I have been since he got on campus. I thought when Pitt signed Jalen Barden and Jordan Addison in the same class, I said these two guys are both going to contribute in a big way. And Jalen Barden has gotten limited opportunities over his 2 years at Pitt. Over the last 2 years at Pitt, because he's had 2 seasons here and he's dealt with some injuries. But he has made some big time plays at Pitt. He had a huge touchdown catch against Miami. And go look up that highlight. I mean, that was a big-time catch. And that's what he can do. And honestly, the thing I thought he could do was run really fast and outrun everybody down the field and get open downfield for, deep passes. He can make some big-time catches, too. There's no reason he only has, there's no reason that Jalen Barden should only have 2 targets so far this season. And Pat Narduzzi said the Monday after the West Virginia game, so last Monday, after Barden got 0 targets against West Virginia, Pat Narduzzi said, we got to get Jalen Barden more involved. We have to get him the ball more. We ended up getting 2 targets against Tennessee. It's not exactly an overwhelming workload right there. I do think they need to work him in. I think he needs to play more. I think he can make plays. I think he can do things on the field for you that maybe not a lot of the guys on the team can do. I'd like to see him more involved this week. Santa Likes Blondes says, this whole thing about Pat Narduzzi not giving out injury reports is normally not a big deal, but when it comes to the quarterback situation, it's annoying. With Keaton Slovis, it's 8 to 10 win season. With Nick Patty, a 6 to 7 win season. Well, first of all, I hear you that it's annoying that Pat Narduzzi doesn't give out injury info about the quarterbacks. But if you're willing to accept that he won't give out injury info about any position, then I think the quarterbacks, more than any, it's understandable. There really is a competitive advantage there if you can kind of hide which quarterback is going to play and which quarterback opponents need to prepare for. I mean, just look at last week, right? Like, they come out in the first half, and I think Keaton Slovis was in the shotgun all but one snap. They come out in the second half, and Nick Patty was under center almost the entire time. And so even just that, having that sort of preparation difference, or having to prepare for a quarterback who's in the shotgun or a quarterback who's under center. I mean, the message you sent with that Tennessee game film to Western Michigan and anybody else who might face Pitt while there's still this uncertainty about the quarterback situation, the message you sent is one quarterback works out of the shotgun and one works from under center. Now, I think it's highly unlikely that Nick Patty will be available this week, so maybe that's not even something to consider, but it does give you something else to prepare for. And to be honest, to be completely honest, and I'd be as transparent as I can about this, when it comes to the Keaton Slovis situation, if Pat Narduzzi says, I don't know, I kind of believe him. I think Keaton Slovis' situation this week is that it is being monitored throughout the week. Until heading into the weekend, a final determination is made. Whether it's made on Friday, it's made on Saturday, whatever it is. I genuinely believe Narduzzi that they don't know. Now, if they did, he wouldn't tell us. I don't think he would tell us. I mean, he might go out there tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. They have the Pat Narduzzi has his final press briefing of the week. We all sit down around a conference table. He might say Keaton's fine. He's practiced all week. He's going to play on Saturday or something like that. I don't expect that. I'd be shocked if that's what he does. I'd be shocked if that's what he says. I think Narduzzi's going to say, I don't know. Or he's going to say, I don't talk about injury. I don't talk about personnel. And maybe he might be right. Maybe he might be telling the truth. He might really not know. But he's going to stick to his his regular line. Let's see. Royce Beacom says, is the TV only on ESPNU? Yeah, I think that's where the game is being broadcast, ESPNU. Josh Newark says, is Better Call Saul's one miss away from losing his job again to a walk-on? I don't know. I don't know what the status. That probably depends on how they did this week in practice. It probably depends on how Ben Sauls and Sam Scarton looked during practice this week. If it was shaky or if it was up in the air or it was close, then yeah, maybe one miss and they will, Narduzzi might turn to Sam Scarton. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting situation to watch, but it obviously loomed large. In a game that goes to overtime, you have two field goals missed. That's pretty significant. You can't afford that. While you're trying to figure out all these other things with the team, you can't afford to have field goal kicks be an uncertainty. The Panther Room says, I would like to see Pitt switch the game plan up a little bit more, no matter who the quarterback is. With Nick Patty in, it was more run, pass. Got to believe in him a little bit more, play to win. Yeah, I don't know how the play calling changed. I don't know how the game plan changed or how Frank Cignetti's approach changed once Nick Patty came in, once Keaton Slovis wasn't available anymore. Was it more run, pass? I don't know. I would have to go down and really break down the numbers on that to look at how they approached it. I think they're going to do what they feel gives them the best chance to win. And with Keaton Slovis, it was working out of the shotgun and throwing a decent amount while also running the ball with Izzy Abanikanda. With Nick Patty, it was going under center, still running a decent amount, but still throwing on occasion. They probably did run more with Patty. But like I say, I don't really think Patty's going to play this week. So, we'll see what they come up with for, effectively the number 3 quarterback, who might end up in a backup role or even as a starter. Let's see here. Vincent Calfo says, should Jaden Bradley and Jalen Barton play more over Konate Mumfield and Bub Means? These drops are killing drives like in 2020. So like I say, I don't think they're giving up on particularly Konate Mumfield anytime soon. I think he's staying on the field and getting his playing time and working through whatever he's getting more comfortable on the field is probably what it comes down to. Getting more comfortable on the field, getting more comfortable with the speed of the game at the Power 5 level, getting more comfortable in the offense and working through whatever issues he has on the field. I think that'll be, that will continue. And I think Bub Means physical tools are considerable enough and impressive enough that they're going to keep him out there as well. Now, should Jaden Bradley be getting more snaps than he has? Should Jalen Barden in particular be getting more snaps than he has? Yeah. Does that come at expense of Mumfield, or Means or Wayne? Who does that come in? I don't know. I don't know how they settle that personnel. I did notice that they swapped personnel less on offense in the Tennessee game than they did against West Virginia. West Virginia, they were changing a lot of times every other play. They were sending guys in and out. I feel like the Tennessee game, they more or less stuck with a group for a series for the most part, or for a drive for the most part, with minimal substitution. Maybe they go back a little bit more, go back to a little bit more subbing and get Bradley and Barden in that way. Byron Flex says, observation after attending Pitt, Tennessee. 1, the games, not just this one, now dragging on 4 hours. TV timeouts are insufferable. One team or other gets momentum, crowd gets into it, and a TV timeout. Ugh. Let me see if, Royce, if you had another point you were going to follow up with on that. I don't see anything. Let's see. Yeah, the games are ridiculously long. To be honest, I don't think it's TV timeouts that are the problem. There are TV timeouts in the NFL too, right? Every change of possession, there's a TV timeout. They take just as many TV timeouts. They're just as long. The problem, I honestly think, what stretches these games out is two things. 1, the clock stops on a first down. And 2, the review process. I think they review a lot more. I'd be curious to see data, but I think they review more plays in college than in the NFL, and that slows things down. I don't think it's a matter of timeouts or commercials. It's about, again, the clock stopping on first down and then the reviews. Let's see. I'm going to scroll through here because we have a couple minutes left. TRR says more two tight end sets this weekend. Carter Johnson looked pretty physical blocking. Yeah, they use Carter Johnson a lot. I had his see if I can find. I had his snap numbers. Carter Johnson didn't play in the season opener because he had like an infection right before the game. He was actually in the hospital, but he did play against Tennessee and got 28 snaps. So that's a decent chunk of playing time in that game for Carter Johnson. And I expect that he'll be in there a lot more. I think he'll play a lot, the rest of the season. And it'll be interesting to see how they start working him into the offense. He didn't get any targets. He ran a lot. He ran some pass routes, but he also was blocking a lot. Pass blocking, run blocking. He had a big block on Izzy Banakanda's 20-yard run or 25-yard run. I forget how long it was. His second longest run. So that was a big play, and he can obviously contribute in that way. We'll see if they start working him in as a pass catcher and getting the ball in his hands a little bit more. Doug Woods says, where did it go? I lost your comment, but he basically said, Yarnell or Kyler should have been out there once Nick Patty showed he couldn't move effectively. Yeah, I thought about that. Should they have pulled Nick Patty when he was hobbled and kind of limping around a lot? Should they have gone to one of those other guys? And I think the reality is that Nick Patty, the reality is I think that Nick Patty still gave them a better chance to win. I think he was a better option than Kyler or Yarnell. Even Nick Patty, as he's limping around, look, he ends up throwing a touchdown pass. So, he did have some success. If you had another option, they would have gone with it. But, I don't think Yarnell or Kyler were ready to go. I think you get two quarterbacks ready in any given week, and that's what you really have time to do. And then Kyler, I guess, had gotten some snaps with the offense. Yarnell did some scout team work. But ultimately, you're going to get two quarterbacks ready. And if one gets hurt, you go to number two. And if number two gets hurt, well, you leave him out there if he can still walk. And Patty could still walk. Patrick Schultz says there's a spotted lanternfly buzzing behind me. If there was, I didn't see it. And I don't see it now. And I can see on the screen the wall behind me, and I don't see anything floating around back there. So Patrick, if you're, maybe you're messing with me, or it's up in the ceiling maybe. I don't see any spotted lanternfly. If I did, I would kill it. You're right. I mean, we're supposed to kill it. It's an invasive species. You got to get those things out of there. But I didn't see it. All right, a couple more comments here. Panther Room says, respectfully, Frank Cignetti did a horrible job in the first half, not adding protection for the quarterback, free hits all game. You got to take a wide receiver out, add a tight end or a running back for a blocker in the backfield. Royce Beacom says, agreed, Keaton Slovis was getting killed by untouched blitzes just as he released. TV didn't show that well enough. That could have been the concussion, not just the last play of the half. So here's the problem with that, Panther Room. When you talk about taking a wide receiver out and adding a tight end, they did that against West Virginia. They ran all those plays with, Ryan Jacoby on the field, right? And we all complained about that and said that wasn't a good way to go, to have that extra blocker in there, because it takes, a receiving target out of the game. It makes it easier to defend. I don't know if Keaton Slovis always set the protections well in those plays. I think there was a whole variety of factors that went. Now, yeah, Keaton Slovis took a lot of shots. There's no question. That play by Gavin Bartholomew, the 57-yard touchdown pass, when you watch the highlight of that play, when he's jumping over the guy, you watch the highlight of that play, Slovis gets a snap, he rolls out, he throws, and just as the camera starts to pan away, you can see just in the left-hand corner, Slovis gets hit right after he throws. Tennessee took a lot of shots at him. Not necessarily cheap shots, but they took a lot of shots, and they hit Keaton Slovis a lot, more than you would like your quarterback to get hit. Let's see here. CD says, good evening, Chris. Has Coach Narduzzi ever let a true freshman or a sophomore start on the offensive line? Brian O'Neill was, I'm trying to think of what, he was in the 2014 recruiting class. Or was he 2015? Let me look this up real quick, because when he started in 2016, let me look and see what class. He was in the class of 2014, so he was a redshirt sophomore when he started in 2016. I'm trying to think if any other young linemen have started. Jimmy Morrissey was a starter as a redshirt freshman. Is there anybody else who's been out there? Can't think of anybody off the top of my head. So, it's not likely. I mean, you want to kind of, you would prefer to avoid that. I think coaches usually like to not use freshmen on the offensive line. All right, final one. Royce Beacom says, are you going to Western Michigan? Are you going to Western Michigan, or is it possible to more accurately predict the time of the post-game show? I'm not going to Western Michigan for the game. I'm going to be watching it here at home, and then we'll do the show after the game. It's tough, Royce, because you don't know what time the game is going to end. Like, I'd like to tell you we're going to start at 10 o'clock. But the game starts at 7. It's not going to be over at 10. I would say tentatively let's shoot for 11 o'clock. But if you have another one of these 4-hour games, it might be more like 11:30. But let's tentatively shoot for 11 o'clock, maybe 11:15. I'll keep you posted on Twitter. And like I say, when we go live, you'll get a notification if you hit subscribe. And the subscribe button, if you can't see it, I think it shows up during the live stream, and if not, you can watch it the next day. But it's right over the yellow.com. There's a little blue rectangle over it. It says subscribe. Click the subscribe button, hit the notifications, and turn on the notifications so you get an alert anytime we go live for post-game show or the Wednesday night show. Of course, you also get an alert whenever we post any of our exclusive Pitt video content. The Morning Pitt, Monday through Friday. Every morning we have a new 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes, however long it takes, of Pitt sports talk. And that'll be football talk, basketball talk, recruiting talk, all kinds of stuff. And some of them will be longer, some will be shorter. We keep going longer. I'm trying to trim it down. I'm into the whole brevity thing, but not doing a great job of it with the Morning Pits. But if you turn on alerts, though, you'll know when we post a new one. You'll know every morning, Monday through Friday, when a new Morning Pit comes out. So make sure you do that. Like this video as well. And go check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for all the latest Pitt sports news and the best online community of Pitt fans that you're going to find. Thanks to everybody who came into the live chat tonight. Sorry I didn't get to everybody's comments and questions, but we had a good conversation nonetheless. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate everybody who watches the podcast, the live stream later in the week. Have a good rest of the night. Have a good rest of the week. We'll be back for more. Don't forget the Morning Pit every morning, Thursday and Friday at least, and then we'll have a live show after the Western Michigan game. Stay tuned for a start time on that. But thanks again for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Have a great night. Have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you very soon. We'll talk to you live on Saturday night, and sooner than that, we'll talk to you on Thursday morning for the Morning Pit. So right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a great night.